Mother sentient beings limitless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. Establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Bodhi. All Mother sentient beings, as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Bodhi. All Mother sentient beings limitless as the sky, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and all-knowingness. May they experience happiness and be separated from suffering. I will quickly establish them in the state of the most perfect and precious Bodhi. Thus, until I achieve Buddha, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I engage in virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. In the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, most excellent, I take refuge until Bodhi is reached by the merit of generosity and other perfections. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all wandering beings in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, most excellent. I take refuge until Bodhi is reached by the merit of generosity and other perfections. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all wandering beings in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, most excellent. I take refuge until Bodhi is reached by the merit of generosity and other perfections. May I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all wandering beings. May all Mother sentient beings limitless as the sky, as happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from the bias of attachment and aversion. May all Mother sentient beings limitless as the sky have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from the bias of attachment and aversion. O Mother, sentient beings, limitless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness. May they rest in equanimity, free from the bias of attachment. You protector who possesses great kindness, all-knowing teacher, perfect one, oceans of merit and qualities, homage to you, the Tathagata purity, freedom from attachments, virtue that liberates from the lower realms. This alone is the sublime ultimate reality. Homage to the Dharma. Having been liberated, you show the path to liberation, devoted to the moral precepts. Feel the perfect qualities. Homage to you, the sublime Sangha, whatever slight virtue that may have been gathered through prostrating, offering, confessing, rejoicing, requesting, and beseeching, I now dedicate to complete Bodhi. So in this first session this morning, I want to do basically a guided meditation through from the preliminaries to the first 4 of the 16 stages. But before we do that, so just to again, provide this what we call the view, the understanding of why are we specifically engaging. Why did the Buddha identify breath as sometimes it's called, this supreme object for cultivating the heart, cultivating the mind, using breath as a reference point. Now, we can begin with what's most obvious, which is that's the single most important property of being alive. Breath is taking place. So in terms of it being an object, it's always available. When it's not available, then you have to choose something else, I suppose. Good for a while. Thank you. But then furthermore, if we think in terms of the Buddha's teachings as consisting, so from the Tibetan Himalayan tradition, it's often said that the Buddha's teachings consist of 3 levels of training. I think it's important when we talk about these 3 levels of training that we don't map these 3 levels or the names that we hear associated with the 3 levels, that we don't automatically assign these 3 levels to existing forms of Buddhism spread throughout different Buddhist cultures. And so the 3 levels of training, the first one is called individual liberation, the second is the bodhisattva, and the third is secret mantra. So sometimes these 3 are also called what's known as the Hinayana, the Mahayana, and the Vajrayana. And it's when those terms are used, I think then we make the mistake of assigning, Hinayana, so you must be talking about the Buddhism that exists now and practiced in Southeast Asia, in Burma, Thailand, Cambodia, so on and so forth. Mahayana, you must be talking about those Buddhists over in East Asia, in Korea, in China, Japan. This is when I think when we are confusing categories and terminology. Within the Tibetan Himalayan context, when they talk about the 3 levels, They use various terms, of course. The one that I think is the most neutral and will help people to step away from making that, I think, wrong equivalences is to use individual liberation, bodhisattva, and secret mantra. Individual liberation is speaking of how, at this level of training, we have to recognize first how we ourselves are in a particular situation and what did the Buddha illuminate about that situation, and understanding that, then making a strong resolve, a conviction that then leads to a resolve of a determination to be free. So necessarily it has to start there, at the level that is on the individual. So to that degree then, the other term for it is Hinayana, which means the lesser vehicle. So the lesser vehicle is lesser in the sense that the scope, the focus, is limited to yourself. Now, if you don't start there, and some of us think, oh, I'm not interested in that, because many of us suffer from different degrees of Messiah complex. So we want to go to the next one. Oh, the bodhisattva thing. Actually, maybe I'll share later if those who have registered, or maybe not. It might sound so pessimistic. An acquaintance of mine in academia who has been doing years and years of him and his partner, they have been doing years and years of serious documenting and making sense of the dangers of meditation, which people who don't understand, I think, the equivalent of the born again, meditators, championing meditation as the cure-all for everything. I think they think these two people are like, secretly funded by fundamentalist Christians or something to undermine meditation. Not at all, because the sources themselves, the Buddha himself warned against the dangers that you will encounter as you do this work, Anyway, this article has something to do about certain types of delusions of grandeur, and how that turns up in people training in spiritual things, specifically meditation. So very easy to just kind of go off on a tangent and then begin to justify all kinds of very problematic behavior. And when it, goes up to the level of leadership in Buddhist communities, then it's all just trouble, So the individual liberation level, rather than seeing it as limited, selfish, see it as reality check, right? See it as, if you can't pass that level of removing mental defilements from your own mind, whether seated on this side or seated on this side, all this other talk is all nonsense, right? For the sake of others, to benefit others. It's just nonsense. Even further nonsense to try to get to the secret mantra level that says, right now, right as you sit here, you are Buddha. Well, sounds really great, further, if feeding that, grandeur delusion, right? As it is, I am Buddha. Oh, okay. So so we have to start on the individual liberation level, keeping it honest. That's what this first level is, keeping it honest. Is it working out for you? Are your mental defilements being reduced in your engagement with this practice? If it is not happening at that level, then talking about, the universal. So you go from the individual to the universal, which is what the bodhisattva level of training is, the universal. Then from the universal, where you go secret mantra, I would call it like, it's like manifesting what is innately there already, which is, we say, right now. The way the body abides, the way the mind abides, they are both abiding in an awakened state. But we are not experiencing the body and the mind as Buddha, as awakened. So the secret mantra level is the kind of, you could say, radical awakening. Wait, somebody wrote a book with that title. Never mind. Yeah, well, it's that idea, like, it's really radical, like to say right now, this body, this mind, is already abiding in that state of being awakened. So these are the three levels. And in the Tibetan Himalayan tradition, it says that you practice all three simultaneously as a complete package. And depending on lineages within the Tibetan Himalayan tradition, some lineages emphasize the lines between these three. They are more, I guess you could say, clearer in articulating this set of practice belongs to this belongs to this belongs to this. First you do this, then you do this, then you do this. Other traditions, other lineages are more interested in, I would say, in contrast to that, emphasizing the holistic nature of these, and even saying, like, in fact, from the Buddha side, there are no stages. But from the trainees' side, there are stages. The Buddha only spoke about one reality. Your capacity to understand that reality is what makes the stages. Otherwise, there aren't stages. The Buddha did not affirm these stages insofar as from the Buddha's side, from the Buddha's perspective. So it's the one reality. So one example of how this one reality regarding the three levels with regards to what we call the 10 non-virtues, the negative, unskillful actions of body, speech, and mind, which is summarized, by the Buddha into 10 major non-virtues. And the 10 non-virtues is killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, deceptive speech, divisive speech, destructive speech, distracted speech, coveting mind, harmful mind, and wrong views, especially wrong views with regards to causality, karmic cause and effect, to deny, to ignore that there is karmic causality, or getting karmic causality upside down. Like, you have problems, kill a goat, maybe it'll solve your problem. Wrong view. You can extend from there, killing goats to killing neighbors, to killing people across the border, killing people across the world. The upside down understanding of causality, right? So these are the 10 non-virtues. And often, when discussing 10 non-virtues, it tends to be assigned to the individual liberation level. So the founder of Drigung Kagyo, Kyoba Rinpoche, Kyoba Jigten Sumgen, he says, actually the essence of all three levels of the vows is the abandonment of the 10 non-virtues. It says on the individual liberation level, is seeing causes of suffering and putting aside the causes of suffering. Is the practice of the abandoning the 10 non-virtues. How this evolves into a bodhisattva kind of level of practice is when you abandon the 10 non-virtues, not just for your own sake. You abandon it because of your concern for all beings without exception. Seeing how these 10 non-virtues are harmful, not only for yourself, but also for others. And evolving your own kind of, again, relationship with the 10 non-virtues, so that even thinking that if there is a situation, and there's a very big if, but nonetheless, if there is a situation where I need to do something that is karmically negative for myself, but it can be of benefit to others, I have to be willing to do it. And that's a very big if. He's very careful to say, don't willy-nilly say, oh, yep, for the sake of others, I'm just going to steal now. For the sake of others, I'm going to, commit sexual misconduct, Again, how easily we fool ourselves, right? But he says, your practice begins to really mature into this next level, in the bodhisattva level, when you understand that it's not just simple moralistic list that you are engaging. Then finally, it becomes secret mantra, where you understand that abandoning or putting aside the 10 non-virtues is not a means to get somewhere. Yeah? It's the very nature of being Buddha that you do not engage in the 10 non-virtues. The very essence of being awake is you have no capacity to engage in the 10 non-virtues. So now the seemingly simple or basic practice of not engaging in the non-virtues is no longer some kind of effort that you put into to go, don't do this, don't do this, don't do that. Your very nature now has matured into, it's not in my nature to do any of this. And that's when you are manifesting what is innately there through not engaging in the 10 non-virtues. So this is one example of how to understand, seemingly different levels of practice as not really different things that you are doing. It's a process of growing in the practice. So likewise, in this context, when His Holiness teaches the Sravasti meditation, usually at the beginning he talks about how, so now let's look at this topic of breath. So he says, on the individual liberation level, through establishing, through looking at the 4 tetrads, right? Body, sensation, mind, and phenomena, or dharma. So through looking closely at the nature of body, you abandon grasping attachment through the body. You have a much more informed, a much clearer understanding of what body is. It's because we don't understand what body is, then we think body is self. Remember the mental image I said of who you are? Yeah, that's related to body, and that's a very specific image. And that image of that person comes out especially when trauma arrives. Then it's your 7-year-old self, it's your 16-year-old self, it's your 43-year-old self that will turn up. And that is related to the basic confusion or delusion that we have with regards to body. So when you train to look more deeply, more clearly about nature of body, then you abandon grasping and attachment. Then you will recognize what is, you will not make the mistake of regarding what is impure, unclean, to be clean and desirable. So that's the first, right? Then by looking at getting a clearer understanding of the sensation that arises. Right? And when sensation arises, in relation to sensory contact happening. The eye consciousness, we call it, or sight, making contact with a sight object. And in that first moment, then, sensation pops up. Precognitive sensation pops up. But that's related to the body. So now we look into sensation, into Vedana, and from there we recognize the burdensome nature of these sensations. Then renunciation arises towards samsara. And there we see the impermanent as impermanent, rather than mistaking that which is unreliable to be reliable, to be permanent, going around hoping that some stability can arise from what is inherently unstable. Then by looking closely to this third tetrad, mind, you abandon grasping and attachment towards samsaric phenomena. And there it's said to be related to seeing dukkha as dukkha, seeing suffering as suffering, and not mistaking suffering or expecting that which is inherently burdensome to somehow be delivering liberation. Then through establishing, looking at closely phenomena, the nature of phenomena, these building blocks of experiences, and seeing them clearly, finally you realize the not-self nature of all phenomena. And by that, you will not anymore suffer from seeing self where there is no self, seeing essences when there are no essences. So this is the 4 frames of references through this practice of mindfulness of breath at the level of individual liberation. At the level of Mahayana, in one of the Mahayana sutras it says, realizing the body as unclean is, and in that way, not giving rise to attachment and grasping to materiality, that is the practice of generosity. First of the 6 perfections of bodhisattvas. Not perceiving conceptual thoughts. So that means, your mind, your heart is now gathered in a stable, steady way. That is disciplined conduct. Second of the paramita. And to see unwaveringly, like the continuity of your clear perception. That is the practice of patience, meaning like continuity from moment to moment. Mindfulness remains stable. And then, that is the effort, the joyful effort. The patience is when we are able to see that there is no self except for what we impute as self, except for what we make as self. Aside from the process of self-making, there is no self there. And that gives rise to true patience. And patience here maybe is not exactly a good translation of Kashanti. What's a better one?
Maybe like acceptance.
Yeah, it's some kind of acceptance, right? Acceptance that arises not because you've been defeated too many times, you accept, but you understand, right? So sometimes say endurance, also not a good translation. Yeah, it's like you get it, You know, you get it now, and so it's no longer so miserable. It's at all. In fact, you don't fight what is. Acceptance in that sense. You don't fight what is. Then perceiving the inherent nature is meditative concentration. Inherent nature, this is talking about emptiness. And then perceiving all phenomena as birthless, that is wisdom. Then finally, in the Vajrayana context, as it pertains to breath, so one of the main precepts of Vajrayana is that the main cause of wandering in samsara, in confused existence, is explained as due to the wind energies circulating all over the 72,000 channels except for the central channel. And so they are traveling on all the byways and the pathways and not going into the central highway, into the middle way. Actually, there's a play with words here, calling the middle channel the Uma, the Madhyama channel is also the Madhyamaka, the middle path. So now our minds are deluded because according to this understanding, minds ride on energy, wind energies, as a rider rides on a horse. And as long as these horses, so if you update this imagery, it's vehicles, you know. So we are busy driving around along all these polluted streets and lanes and pathways. And as long as we're driving down those, it's polluted and we produce more pollution. But when you are able to get all the winds, all the breath into the central channel, then the minds are free from defilements, free from pollution. And that's when clear-seeing wisdom arises. And so, so these again, there are various, so one way to understand is like all the practices the Buddha gave, from the practice of disciplined conduct all the way up to more fancy sounding practices like inner heat, you know, Chandali, Tummo, Poa, all these things. What's really going on underlying all these different practices is there are ways and means of getting all the wind energies to go into the central channel. Kyoba Jigten Sungen even says, like, you know, if renunciation like truly arises, then he says that's the supreme way to cause the winds to enter the central channel. Right? He said no need to do all this truko, which, you know, let's see. Maybe some of you can still do it. The rest would just break your backbone, hopping and jumping some of these exercises. For me, for sure, it will cause accidents. More visits to the ER before the mind calms down. And it says, you know, if you really genuinely give rise to renunciation, then all the stray winds from the 72,000 channels will enter the central channel. So here then, you know, when we engage breath as the main topic, there are so many levels to why breath is said to be this supreme object. So let's begin with, you can put aside the text, you know, and I'm going to, as I say, do the guided meditation. Just, you know, helpful for you to know that I will be basically reading from page 4 and 5, but with added instruction for each of these steps here. Having gone to the wilderness, to the shade of a tree, or to an empty building, sit down, folding legs crosswise and holding body upright. Going to the wilderness, going to the shade of a tree, going to an empty building. It's not just a matter of physically going to such a place. It's also about giving rise to the resolve of not being so easy to be distracted and to respond to everything that turns up, but to make a resolve that for at least this period of meditation, you're going to put aside everything else. So you can say to everything else, later, basically. If some thought, some plan enters and say, hey, you need to think about this for tomorrow, just firmly say later, then put it aside. Sitting down, folding legs crosswise, holding body upright. If we expand that, then it becomes the instruction known as the 7 points of the posture of Vairochana. Vairochana is the central Buddha of the central position in the system of the 5 Buddha families. And the name Vairochana means illuminator. So to be in the posture of the illuminator is to be in this posture that is most conducive to the mind recovering its innate nature as the all-pervading illuminator, steady and bright, radiant and yet steady, without confusion, still, quiet, and bright. From the 5th instruction of the 3 Vajra statements by Gyalpa Jigten Sumgön, it is stated that by sitting with your legs crossed, the earth wind will circulate through all the key points of the pathways, the meridians in your body, and you can conquer or subdue unruly earth winds. The ability to do that will help in digestion and in building physical sensations that are pleasurable, that are conducive, that sets body at ease. He further said that placing your hands in a meditation mudra will conquer the fire, wind elements. And cultivate the qualities of bliss concentration. Straight back and shoulders conquer the all-pervasive wind energies, dispelling illnesses of the nerves, illnesses with wind disorders, illnesses of heart can be avoided. Tucking in your chin will press upon the tips of the nerves, so that wind energies become efficient and can give rise to non-conceptual concentration. Touching your tongue to the upper palate is effective for conquering water, wind, and prevent the flow of saliva and mucus from the nose. Eyes looking down, gazing down, is effective in conquering space wind element and can give rise to clear mind. In placing your body in this yogic posture, connect that to abandoning the 7 non-virtuous actions of body and speech. As the 7 non-virtues of body and speech are abandoned, the 3 non-virtues of mind weaken and weaken and weaken. And when insight begins to build as a result of training the mind, then the 3 non-virtues of mind can be dispelled as well. You can also think of adopting this specific posture as manifesting the Nirmanakaya, the emanation body that arise for the benefit of others. Then on the inner level, these pointers on how to place the body allow the vital essence within your body to abide in a more stable way, in a more focused way, leading to naturally experiencing great bliss and then benefiting beings through Sambhogakayas. Finally, by maintaining this body posture, it leads to the realization that transcends all concepts, all mental defilements, thereby manifesting the Dharmakaya. We can even connect this to the Soto Zen founder's statement that all we do is just sit. Shikantaza, just sitting. Sitting by dropping both body and mind is to manifest the Buddha that we are. Nothing else to do. For there is nothing else but Buddhahood, following Buddhahood, following Buddhahood. Sit down, folding legs crosswise, holding body upright. Establishing mindfulness to the fore. Always mindful, breathe in. Mindful, breathe out. At this beginning stage in the preliminaries, go ahead if you want to kind of play a little bit with breath. Here you can deliberately make your breath longer, deeper, slower, and also deliberately make it short. Then breathe in. Hold breath in for a little before exhaling. And play with breath a little until let it become natural, and your desire to play with the breath also subsides. Then let breath be doing its own thing. No need to control and manipulate. But at the beginning, I feel free to play with it. Long inhalation, short exhalation, short inhalation, short and sharp inhalation, slow and steady exhalation, hold breath. But through all of it, be present. Be present, be present, be present. As your body and mind begin to relax and settle into their own places, when you start noticing that your breath naturally has become longer and slower, then breathing in long, you should discern. You should be able to tell, I am breathing in long. Or breathing out long, you should discern, I am breathing out long. follow the length of your inhalation and exhalation. Follow the length. Pay attention to the entire length of whether it's an inhalation or exhalation. And in that way, know that it is long. Breathing in. Know that it is long. Breathing out. Patiently, clearly follow the length of your breath. As your breath becomes more steady, more at ease, as your body becomes more relaxed, the body actually requires less oxygen. And without forcing, without trying to make it so, see if you can note your breath becoming shorter or more subtle, so that the experience of this breath may seem short. And if you can discern that, then as you breathe in short, you should discern, I am breathing in short. Breathing out short, you should discern, I am breathing out short. Mainly understand that in these first two stages, you are guiding, leading with breath, your body into a deeper state of relaxation. That's the underlying movement. Moving from a body that is busy, agitated, tense, into a body that is more relaxed. More relaxed. But not the kind of relaxation where the mind is scattered, but the kind of relaxation that encourages the mind to actually be present and happily present, happy to stay with body. Happy to meet body. Breathing in long, you should discern, I am breathing in long. Or breathing out long, you should discern, I am breathing out long. Breathing in short, you should discern, I am breathing in short. Or breathing out short, you should discern, I am breathing out short. From the preliminary to the first two steps, the first two stages, mainly you're just letting body and mind settle and noticing how as the body settles, mind settles, and breath follows a particular pattern of first becoming longer, more drawn out, and then as the body needs less oxygen because it's relaxed, then breath becomes short, but in a subtle way, quietly short rather than panting short breath. Then in the third stage, now you're beginning to direct and give direction to this practice. Because here it says, now going from just discerning what is going on, now the verb used is train yourself. And what are you training yourself with? Train yourself with, I will breathe in, experiencing the entire body. Train yourself with, I will now breathe out, experiencing the entire body. You should now inhale and exhale, not just through the nostrils. And if you had begun by noticing breath mainly around the area of your nostrils, now you want to notice breath as arising and ceasing, as a whole body experience. Even thinking every single pore of your body. Every single pore on your skin is a mini door where breath comes in and breath goes out. Feel your entire body pulsing, expanding outwards, contracting inwards, expanding outwards again, and contracting inwards again. Expanding, contracting. In this way, train yourself with, I will breathe in, experiencing the entire body. I will breathe out, experiencing the entire body. Instead of focusing your awareness of breath as primarily the coming in of oxygen and the leaving of your body as carbon dioxide, now experience breath as a whole body experience. That what you're absorbing is not just the coarse winds, breath, but the more subtle force that is driving these oxygen or carbon dioxide, pulling in, pushing out. That there is a more subtle wind energy that is pulling in and pushing out. So train yourself with, I will breathe in, experiencing the entire body. I will breathe out, experiencing the entire body. Then to transition from the third to the fourth stage, sometimes there is a 3.5, which is to begin to turn your attention. Now you're shifting attention from purely to the breath and to the experience of the entire body. You're shifting the in and out breath to paying attention to this constantly going on process known as bodily fabrication or bodily formation. That body is not just a thing, but body is it's an aggregation of bodily processes. And these bodily processes are bodily formations, bodily fabrication. And in some ways, the most basic bodily formation that is going on is the in and out breath itself. And so perhaps you just even want to start there, how breathing itself is a type of bodily formation, bodily fabrication. Then from there, if you note, you can scan your body for where there are places that are more tight, more stressed, or even an active pulsing pain. When you find these places where there's tightness, where there is pain, where there's discomfort, see that they are bodily formations. See that they are bodily fabrications. And then use the subtle fabrication, the subtle formation, the subtle ebbing and flowing of breath. Breathe into those places. Using one subtle type of bodily formation to dispel tightness, stiffness, pain, discomfort in other instances of bodily formation. But first, recognize body as an aggregation of bodily formations, bodily fabrication. Then when you are ready at your own pace, you fully enter the fourth stage of I will now breathe in calming, tranquilizing bodily fabrication, and I will breathe out calming bodily fabrication. If you are visually oriented, then you can use the image, the visualization of as you breathe in, you're breathing in life energies, you're breathing in the blessings of all the awakened beings, the goodwill and the love and the compassion of all the awakened beings coming into you through your breath to tranquilize bodily formations, cooling down the body, calming down the inflammation. And as you exhale, almost like a vacuum, the pain, the discomfort, the stress, the tightness is being pulled out of you and dispersed into empty space. His Holiness also gives us another source in the scriptures that say, calming bodily fabrication or tranquilizing bodily fabrication can be done by paying attention to the subtle space between each inhalation and exhalation, and hold that space for a little bit without too much force. Over time, you'll be able to hold that space longer and longer. And in holding that space, pausing there in between an exhalation and an inhalation, and also holding space there is a way of calming bodily fabrication. So to tranquilize or to calm bodily formation, according to the Yogacara Bhumi Shastra, is to cultivate that brief pause between completing an exhalation and beginning an inhalation. any time within these 4 stages, if you find that there is too much kind of mental activity going on, too much conversation, even if the conversation is arising from these instructions, then you should go back to the preliminary of simply experiencing breath and the wonderment of breath. So to cultivate, to meditate, is not to stubbornly fixate on one and only one thing, but to have a bag of resources to use whichever tool that is necessary at whichever moment. And to get better and better at switching these tools, become more and more seamless and stressless. To pick up one tool, to fix one thing, put down the tool, pick up another tool, seamlessly go from one to the other with greater and greater ease. Here, mainly in the first tetrad, is to ease the body. To allow the body to settle into a good place. And without being fixated on wanting this good place either. So His Holiness also points out that one of the things that are going on here is in the first in the first tetrad, is you are kind of modulating in between mental laxity and mental agitation for the mind to settle into neither agitated nor going into a state of downness. Kind of just tuning the string instrument, tuning the piano, to just strike the right chord. And that is partly what's also being cultivated during this first tetrad. So, using breath, understanding breath as a property of the body to facilitate the body arriving at a good place. But without I want a good place, I want a good place. So having the intention and understanding that when we begin to pay attention to breath in certain ways, it can put the body in a very natural, relaxed, good place. Then the mind also comes to a middle point between laxity, downness, and agitation. So at the beginning, it's good to have some clarity about the stages. But as you begin to go through the stages, these 4, at a certain point, you don't need to kind of stay fixed on the 4, knowing that you can go back and forth drawing from And so there is a linearity, there's a linear progression as a way to kind of lead you into it. But once you're in it, so to say, and then you can drop that, oh, am I in 3 or am I in 2 or am I in 1? That's just wah going on already, Then go back to just becoming present with the breath. So a balance of, being clear about what the 4 stages are, and also knowing when to just set aside all this. Oh, this is stage 2, that is stage 4. And more ease, Kind of like starting to learn how to cook, with recipes. And then getting to a point where you don't need to look at the recipe. You have a direct kind of experience of what is going on. So any questions, observations, clarification that you are hoping I could give? Not that I will be able to, but please go ahead, whether on Zoom or in the room here. Yes?
Going way back to the beginning this morning,
Mm-hmm.
first of all, I have to say that was amazing because that is exactly what I came in wanting to ask you about this morning. So, thank you very much for that.
Wait, what did I talk about?
So, regarding the levels
Yes.
the individual
Right.
versus the
Universal and the,
Yes, sir.
yeah.
So, my own teachers that I have had seem to be very focused on the bodhisattva as a concept, and I'm struggling with this a little bit because
Yeah.
I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
Spending so much time focused on others is difficult if I'm not focused on...
And you're not doing enough.
Yeah.
That's why the world is in a bad place.
How can obviously I should be in the first stage, but how can I do a better job of focusing in the individual?
Don't.
Thank you.
This is even pre-meme, So there didn't used to be social media, right? People just printed things out and stuck it on the office wall. In our graduate school department in the religious studies at UVA, we had one of the secretaries, there were 3 secretaries, had a kind of a wicked sense of humor. And she printed out, I remember this picture, and it says, the lashings will continue until morale improves. So sometimes, we're hoping that morale would improve, with lashings. Don't. So first, it sounds like nonsense, It sounds like kind of psychobabble dharma, if it sounds like that, but actually, the words are pointing in a direction that I think, on some level, you kind of you get, and which is what I want to say is, it's a balance between, or balance maybe, but sometimes it's a tension, and it's a kind of creative tension between having an intention and letting go of the intention. So more, another way of putting it, you have to completely accept the present moment of whatever it is. Good, bad, neutral, You have to be completely, you aim to be comfortable in your own skin. And no further improvements needed. But then within that, improve. So more specifically, don't worry about how you are actually benefiting all beings. Start with, if I can remove some mental defilements from my own mind, that has to be good. For me, for sure. And then everyone else that has to be around me. And that's good, you know? Yeah. Yeah.
I have a question about healing. I had a very early life injury that involved broken bones. And when that began to surface in practice, it was very explosive.
Yeah.
And the explosive part has largely subsided, but I'm in a there's a long stage still of healing. And it's physical and it's emotional and mental.
Yes.
And it really strikes me that sort of embedded in these things that you're talking about is this kind of healing that can come, especially to the emotional, mental defilement part.
Yes.
That it is embedded in here, really. But it does because teachers don't
Yeah.
know often what to do with students who have a lot of emotional baggage and are healing. So I wanted to ask.
Yeah, for sure, I think there's a lot to be kind of savored from these 16 stages. And sometimes words are even limited. But these are some of the themes. As I alluded to yesterday, in some ways we come about learning about the Dharma from too much theory side, talking about impermanence, suffering, not self, But both body and mind are not yet toned. The field is not yet tilled for the real kind of meaning of that to bear fruit. Then sometimes even bearing wrong fruit. So the 16 stages approach, to me at least, I see quite clearly how it really strives in having you lead body and the phenomena called body and aggregation of processes that we call body, to lead it into a place by working with emotions, by working with the material body, the mental emotional body, and the energetic body. And in the root text of the 16 stages, there isn't, so much words to describe all these things. And I would say, like in the time of the Buddha, because being in the presence of this person was so powerful, that's the meaning of devotion. But this devotion has an object, which of course hard to find today. Someone like Buddha Shakyamuni. But that made it so easy for people to trust a few words. And then they discover. Then as we go further and further away from his time, we have to come up with more words. because we have to hang our conviction on words and understanding. Whereas I think when he was alive, and and still today, of course, especially, I would say actually in all traditions of Buddhist practice, whether they explicitly talk about the need for a guide or not, some are more explicit than others, but still, I think the basic model of apprenticeship applies across Buddhist tradition. So then being able to be in close proximity to someone who may not, have the same kind of effect as the Buddha had on his immediate disciples, but nonetheless, such a great fortune, such good karma, if we meet such persons and we are inspired to be in their presence, not in a hero worship way, not in a, but just to, without a lot of fireworks, quietly kind of understanding, that they are serving as an example of how this can be done. Then less reliance on text.
So one of the things that really struck me was that I came into practice enormously ambitious to become a good person.
Mm-hmm.
But I cannot be ambitious in allowing my body to heal.
Yeah.
And this space between the in and out breath really struck me, because part of my job is to quit interfering.
Yes.
And if I can step back, the body wants to heal.
Yes.
There's a movement.
Yes. Or find its own place.
Yes.
We have to get out of the way. And body will settle if you allow it to settle. And so the body is a clear place, the mind is a clear place. It will find both its place of settling if we allow it. And so actually, historically, it falls under the section of the Kagyama, It comes with a seal. Very strict seal in Kyoba Rinpoche's Sungbum. It's a teaching called the Three Statements. And I'm not revealing things within the sealed content, but just to give you an idea, the three statements are actually quite mundane. It says, the body is just like that. The mind is just like that. And the qualities would arise just like that. So it's pointing to the abiding nature of body as Buddha, the abiding nature of mind as Buddha. And if you know what that is, that the body is just like that, the mind is just like that, and the qualities would now arise just like that. And the results you're looking for would arise just like that. That's so simple. Yeah.
I just want to add a comment,
Uh-huh.
gentlemen.
Yeah, sure.
Is that
Thank you.
I dealt with that a lot, and I've heard you speak that along with compassion, you have to bring wisdom
Yes.
into the,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
and that wisdom is taking care of yourself,
Yeah. Yeah.
so that you can
Right.
do.
Yeah, if you don't know how to take care of yourself, then nothing else has real meaning, It's just sound bites. But it's funny, right? I mean, we will have the way we train and the way we utilize our medical doctors, right? Who's supposed to help us have optimal health. They are like the worst examples of healthy life. then I even a little bit, I'm a little concerned, like, I mean, within reason, you will hear teachers being humble and honest and say, please, practice what I tell you, but don't follow what I do. I mean, yeah, I know sometimes where they're coming from, that they're saying, I have shortcomings, I'm still working on it. But sometimes that can kind of slip into the other side, like, don't do what I do what I tell you to do. It's like, wait, that's not going to work. Yeah, if you are not showing those qualities of the practice, you cannot produce results in the students. Kyoba Rinpoche, Kyoba Jidensung, when founder of this lineage, he says, a mold with no design cannot give you imprints with designs. So even, like in the bigger picture of like saying wanting to benefit others, like, so then, yeah, how do you do that? You yourself show that benefit. You yourself show that benefit. And then if that happens, in an organic way, not like with I need to show myself, I need to look good. but in a genuinely honest way, There's a saying I've not been able to track down. Maybe it's a fake saying, but it's a good one. It says that the early Kagyupa masters instructed students the way that a grandmother gives instructions. You trust what grandma says because, kind of grandma's life, you understand, And what grandma says is not going to be a lot of fancy words. Just cut directly to what you need to know. Okay, we take a break. Come back in about 15 or so minutes. 20 minutes. Oh yeah, just come back at 11. Now it's 10:34. Because we don't have a lunch break, we're going to end at 1 New York time. Now it's 10:34, so we come back at 11. Yeah, let's take a break.
And thank you for that. You know what? Something I just think you too. I remember when I first came down this
Important, meaningful things you don't write down. You write down business transactions. Writing is only good for that. Business transactions and laws of the state. Write those things down. But they are so mundane. Why would you subject these instructions to the written word? Then eventually they got written down. And at that point also, I think, the Buddhist community started to relate to these teachings, I feel, in a way that you would not if it was not written down. Once you have things written down, you begin to concretize processes, because you can now look here, look here, look here, and then, right, when you do this, you're going to go, wait a minute. Now, of course, when you go, wait a minute, you have some choices. One approach would be, this is reliable, this is not. Toss. One approach. Second approach, this is reliable, but still wait a minute. Now you have to do like some kind of gymnastics, right? Logical gymnastics to reconcile the three. Then you come up with something. And if all three were said by the Buddha, he said it to three different people. Right? It's almost like if you get, I don't know, doctor's prescription. More like traditional doctors, not our, because the difference is this, right? Three people with symptoms of the common cold comes to a TCM doctor, traditional Chinese medicine. It's potentially possible that you'll get three different prescriptions because the symptoms are due to imbalances that has arisen for these three individuals. And these three individuals may have different constitutions, so that to seek balance back to that constitution, you need to have a mix of the following herbs, you need to have a mix of the following, and you need to have a mix of the following. All right? So Buddha was a physician that prescribed that way. So now imagine, right? Now people come across Buddha's prescription and then going, wait, they all had cold. Why is it, this has 7 ingredients, that has 9 ingredients, this has 6 ingredients, right? So we begin to fixate on the teachings on the basis of the written word, and something was lost. In fact, in that way, lost. And then something else was produced. But in the Tibetan Buddhist world, over time they say there are two approaches to the Buddhist path, Buddhist practice. They call it the Pandita way, which is the learned ones, and then the Kusali way, which is the grandmother style. I'm biased, partial to, I think grandmother style was the original style. The Pandita way came after all these things got written. And once they were written, you need specialists. Then specialists turned up to specialize. Anyway, there is enough kind of consistency to what was written down about the 16 stages, so that I think it's a pretty reliable that we can say the Buddha did on numerous occasions addressing different people. He found that the 16 stages, and where the 16 stages may have variance is in the first couple of stages. And sometimes the long and the short is combined into one stage, and the preliminary of merely being present to breath is stage 1. Then what's now in our list, stage 1 and 2, is collapsed into stage 2. And so you can see why, under the different set of circumstance, he would rearrange the preliminary and the stage 1 and 2, and have the preliminary as the first stage. So anyway, now, if we follow that, now we go to the next tetrad. It's dealing with what's translated as feelings. Since producing this handout, now I think I like more the word, the translation of sensation. It's sensation because it's more, yeah, sensation, feelings, but it's leaning more in the direction of physical sensation. So it continues from body. Because the movement that we're seeing in these tetrads, right, is a movement from the coarse to the subtle. So the courses of these 4 frames of reference is body. Then body to the sensations that arise in relation to body. And then the next step, the mind is talking about the perception, and then the mental formations that arise. And then the Dhamma, the 4th one, is the object of consciousness. What consciousness engages are these basic building blocks of experience, which is what the 4th reference is. And at that point, it's completely depersonalized. But even when it's completely depersonalized, it's still possible for what we would call like projecting self onto impersonal properties. And at that level of the 4th tetrad, it's such a thorough cleaning up of any and all clinging. And so it goes to even the object of consciousness that are impersonal, needing to be addressed. And so anyway, here, right, with the sensation, we are now moving into a more subtle realm, so to say, that began with the body. So there is another text during the break. I was talking about this. There's another text called the Satipatthana Sutta, where there the main content is discussing these 4 frames of references. But in that text there is, next to, if I remember correctly, no instructions given on how do you train with them. So that text is more, you could call it theory or the view. It's helping you have the right view, refining your view, which is the first stage of the Eightfold Path, starting with view, starting with understanding. So it's a good text, to learn the view. And when you look at how the Buddha talked about these 4 frames of references, then he treats a broader range of considerations, points of views, ways of looking at the body, much more extensive than the 16 stages. So each of those tetrad can be further expanded for sure. But here, when it's put together as 16 stages, the Buddha is emphasizing a skillful development of the body in a good place, the mind in a happy place. So it's actually dealing with pleasant, pleasurable sensations. Quite surprising, maybe to some. Especially when you think of this, this is kind of a Theravada tradition. If you think in those limited terms, you're like, they don't talk about bliss. Isn't these like, crazy Vajrayana stuff, But actually it's there. In the Dhammapada, another text associated, not exclusive, but at least these days associated with Theravada, it says, the capacity to experience pleasure is innate. And then it talks about how suffering arises from that. There is a normal innate capacity, but when we don't know what to do with that, that is how suffering begins to coalesce around this So then in Vajrayana, yeah, very explicitly at a certain point it says, you work with this experience of pleasure, of happiness, sukha, basically, sukha. And so we'll look at page 6, right? So Vedana, translated either as feelings or sensation. So when you read this, so you need to have some basic understanding, which I already alluded to. In the Buddha's teachings on how do we encounter what we encounter, like how do we meet the world, so to say. So how we meet the world, first of all, the world that we meet is largely a projection. Yeah. Is the Buddha saying that there is nothing beyond the projections? It depends on which Buddhist experts you talk to. Yes, the various Buddhist philosophical traditions will have their ways of parking themselves. Is there anything beyond the projection? Ranging from yes, somewhat, no. I think anywhere within the spectrum is fine, as at least a starting point. Then, through your experience, rather than being brainwashed by the positions, you come to some conclusion. Yeah? But you need to start with at least accounting for, and I said, okay, I'm sort of a pragmatic kind of guy, or at least I like to think of myself like that. I said, so we know there is like the inner and the outer, let's say, right? So then, in terms of the inner and the outer, how about at the very least, you give 50% of the burden to what I'm experiencing, the world that I think I'm meeting, at least half of that world is my own stuff. Right? If you can start like that, it's already a very good place. Because habitually, emotionally, we don't meet the world like that. We meet the world as it's all out there. It's all out there. And therefore, from there, right, happiness and suffering is also out there. But then the main point the Buddha makes in terms of happiness and suffering is he says, happiness and suffering, that's an inside job. And so, first, you have to see, is that true? And if you have conviction that, oh yes, at least 50% of the time is an inside job, then that's enough work to do. Like 50% of our meeting the world, encountering the world, 50% of the burden, if you want to see it as burden, or control, if you want to see it as control, or fun, is that I get to, modify it up to at least 50% based on what kind of imaginary powers I have. So work with that projection, right? So Buddha's explanation, more detailed, it would be, so you have heard of the 5 aggregates, which is Buddha's way of accounting for what's here. And so Buddha was an empiricist, right? He was very empirical in talking about what's here. And so he avoided language of soul, self, because it's too nebulous. So he said, no, I don't talk like that. A self that is, beyond this, a self that is hidden, it's like, you've gone too far over there. He just says, what can you account for when you point here? You can account for the body, you can account for the mind. These are not articles of faith. Any reasonable person, when pointing here, can say, there is a body, there is a mind. Is there an owner? Now we are going in a direction that the Buddha says, not helpful. Distraction. He says, but you can say there's body, there's mind. Then next he says, well, what's body? Turns out body is not a thing. And we know that. Again, anyone who can reasonably look at it will say, of course, body is a bunch of bodily processes. What's mind? Mind is a bunch of mental processes, right? So Western medical tradition, Western scientific tradition does not have to come up with a self or a soul to account for why this is working. Likewise, the Buddha was content not to go there. Yeah, he says, so basically, happiness and suffering takes place, has meaning, because there's body and mind. So there's the hardware and there's the software. So one of the aggregates, one aggregate is the aggregate of form. That's the material side. Then the other four aggregates, so there's 5, fall under mind or mental side of things. But in a way, you could think of it as form is like the hardware, and then because there is consciousness, and consciousness is further divided into 6 types related to sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and intellect, thinking. And so you have these 2. When these 2 kind of meet, then the other 3 processes kicks into action. So then more closely, I'm stating it in very simple terms. Not because it'll be hard for you to understand, it's because I don't understand the rest. So, in very simple terms, when we say sight has taken place, then what is really going on there is the eye consciousness, that's the technical term, that exists only for a moment, has come into contact with an object of sight. Now, in that first moment of contact, it says, and now it's pre-cognitive. You don't yet have an idea what it is. But even before you have identified what it is, this called Vedana, feeling or sensation, has already occurred. And this sensation falls into 3 groups. Pleasurable sensation, painful sensation, and neutral. That which is pleasurable, we experience as desirable. That which is painful, we experience as undesirable. That which is neutral, we experience as don't care. Yeah? Like, don't care. Comes from this. Then in the next moment, perception takes place. That is when perception can also be translated as cognition. You cognize now, and you recognize. You recognize. You're like, oh, red, that shape, that color, that shape, that shade, that texture, apple. Then memories of apple, happinesses surrounding apple, traumas and disappointments surrounding apples. That's the mental formation. That's when it has played out. So from body, now looking at sensation as the next frame of reference. So here it's not talking about the the more complex emotions that we call feelings. That falls under mental formations. And so here, even though, as I said, the Buddha identified sensation as constituting 3 types, here he wants us to focus on only one type. Stage 5, train yourself with, I will breathe in, experiencing rapture. Piti was translated as rapture. And train yourself with, I will breathe out, experiencing rapture. 5 and 6, basically, there are 2 closely related words, piti and sukha, rapture and happiness. So in the different commentaries, ancient commentaries, on what's the difference between piti and sukha, basically, piti is a loud kind of pleasure, loud and noisy. Sukha is after the initial excitement, a more stable and a more lasting experience. So one example given is piti is when the parents say, we're going to Disney World, and And sukha is when you are actually there. And we're not even talking about, now you're actually there and there's very long lines. No, forget about that. That's not the point. Yeah, that becomes dukkha, right? Not the very long lines, but that you're actually there, and then the wonderment. It's not the, we are going. So piti is like this loud, and there are descriptions of piti that says, piti can be so strong that, now here you want to take it literally or metaphorically, it's up to you. It says that there's one text, His Holiness identified that text, there are 7 stages of piti. So at the 6th stage, it says piti can move your body from one place to another place. Like, it's that strong. So part of the 7 describes how your hair will stand on end, and bodily kind of like movements, like involuntary, you're so happy. That's piti. And then sukha is, and then it levels out. And so that's the 5 and the 6. Now, to be clear, when you are training, you are trying to instigate these experiences, these qualities of the mind. And so it will not be like that. But as you deepen, if you commit to the 16 stages of cultivating them, then it will become more and more spontaneous. Then you will experience a kind of loud piti, called here rapture. And so one other thing we should notice here is like this is very different from other modes of spirituality. Other modes of spirituality would reverse the 2. Rapture is like the goal. We have ecstatic dancing in Asheville. We have, kirtan. We have Sufi dancing. We have sweat lodges. All these see rapture as the final. Like, that's the high. the Buddhist tradition has always been suspicious of all these peak experiences. In fact, it sees it as, okay, give yourself a taste of that, now calm down. Now let it level out. The other kind of rhythm that you can notice in the 16 stages, it's what I would characterize as pick it up, put it down, pick it up, put it down. Like pick up the stress in a skillful way, rather than you have no awareness, you got hooked. That's not picking up, that's called getting caught. So like turning your attention to, like next, I will breathe in experiencing mental fabrication, 7 and 8, and I will breathe in calming mental fabrication. Step 3A and 4 is the same. 3A is not explicitly mentioned, but yesterday already some of you got that insight yourself, you see. So this is natural processes. Like you pick up, meaning you become aware, you note bodily formation, and then you calm bodily formation. So here is like training the ability to pick up stress, then put it down. And training to pick up joy, pick up happiness, pick up pleasure, then put it down. So within the broader cycle, there are these small cycles of picking up, putting it down, picking up, putting it down, which also corresponds with inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Yeah? So subtly through all of these stages, there are many cycles going on that is reinforcing this pattern of it is not stable, it is not reliable. So that the main insight to be gained in the fourth tetrad is that all states of being are inconstant, impermanent. And so in an indirect way, you are given already, you are being primed, prepped. And so here, breathe in, experiencing rapture, breathe out, experiencing rapture. Breathe in, experiencing happiness, breathe out, experiencing happiness. So elsewhere, like when His Holiness talks about this, he says, so there are things and there are topics of meditation that you pull in here in order to instigate the experience of piti, and then let piti kind of ease into sukha. And so he says, and when you come to that, there are obviously skillful objects and unskillful objects. And so if you engage unskillful object, yes, you can experience piti, but this piti is not exactly the piti we're talking about here. It resembles that. So yes, so including, you're like, okay, Disney World, or I don't know, Taylor Swift, or whatever, right? It will make you like hopping up with joy. So skillful here in this, in our context, we say you can turn your attention to bodhicitta, the altruistic heart, and love and compassion. And so you can pull in loving kindness, training in metta, to give rise to this kind of sense of like everything is good, everything is well, everything is happy. Happiness and the causes of happiness. As a way to instigate this experience of joy, happiness, wellness, well-being. So that's stage 5. Then you transition to 6 by now hold that steady and hold that in a more constant way. So it's slightly kind of toning it down. At the level of training, you have to make it happen. For sure. Here it's not like, mysteriously it will turn up. Just like before you ever hit, the perfect serve as a tennis player, you have to hit a lot of balls. This machine keeps spitting out. And you hit, and you hit, and you hit. So it's contrived at first, but it's a skillful contrivance. So pick suitable objects, pick suitable ways of giving rise to this happy feeling. So it's also interesting here is saying it's good to be happy. As long as you don't get hooked. As long as you don't lose yourself in this. So even rapture, right? Piti has a sense of like losing control. But it's like, go to that height to kind of really feel what feeling happy is, and then temper it. Temper it. You see this cycle on 7, right? Experiencing mind, gladdening mind. 9 and 10. Then concentrating mind, freeing mind. These are again mini cycles that are going on. Experiencing mind, of course, at this point, mind is pretty refined already. It's pretty refined. Even at the level of still initial training, it's a more refined state, at least when you are going through these stages in, say, one session or second session of the day. On the basis of the first 2, now you're in the third. You experience the mind, and then you gladden the mind. Again, you instigate a version of this pleasurable sensation. But you don't stay there. Right? You see this gladdening of mind as a way to encourage the mind to come together, so that you're not all over the place. And so that's the concentrating. It comes together. Then what? Release. Free. Before you objectify this and want it to last forever, you put it down now. So again, picking up, putting it down, picking it up, putting it down. These are the smaller movements within this larger cycle. So 5 and 6 are seen as necessary stages to go through before you expose yourself, before you more directly look at mental fabrication. So that's the inner inflammation, the inflamed heart. before you can put it down. You have to look at it. Then you can put it down in stage 8. It's like to shak, expose and shakpa, related to what we call confession or purification practice. The literal words used, right, is to expose and to set aside. And so this is essentially the move here. Expose, set aside. Ajahn Chah talks about how because you fear suffering, you come to Dharma practice. But your Dharma practice is not going to grow if you continue to fear suffering. Then once you start Dharma practice, you need to train in the resources of skillfully picking up suffering and walk with it for a while. And don't continue to fear suffering, because then you will not solve the problem of suffering. So you have to lean into suffering. Not go create more suffering. Just lean into what's already there. Then when you lean into what's already there and you look at it and you look at it, then when you really taste the burdensome nature of suffering, then no one needs to teach you to put it aside. You will put it aside. He says, so don't fear picking it up, because it's already there, Then pick it up and walk with it for a while. Right now, our impulse is every time suffering turns up, we want to throw it away. But it's not actually throwing it away. We throw it away to immediately pick up something else. We are substituting one big rock for another big rock. And never stop picking up big rocks and wondering why we're so exhausted. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure now, thanks to Jeff researching yesterday, that there are guided recordings that I've done in the past. So we can share those resources for each of the tetrads. Questions, comments? Yes?
So this is talking about feelings.
Uh-huh. As in those 3 sensations.
Yes. Well,
Not feelings. Complicated, emotional.
no, what I'm
Yeah.
trying to get
Uh-huh.
at is that you can, rapture is not just happiness, but also all feelings.
Hmm?
Also all feelings. So sadness and
No. Here is only dealing with pleasurable. Yeah.
feelings of pleasure.
Yes. Yeah. Happiness. It's only dealing with that. In this 16 stages. It deliberately tells you to bring up that experience and perpetuate that. Yeah. It's not dealing with all sensations. And only 3, It's not feelings like the way we think of. It's only 3. Pleasurable, painful, and neutral. Yeah. In other meditations, other techniques, it may focus on painful. And then in others, even focus on the neutral. Here, it's like, pick up the pleasurable. The whole, I mentioned yesterday, I'll repeat again, right? And this whole 16 stages really wants to make sure that you know how to place body and mind in a good place before we do the heavy lifting. that comes with the third and the fourth tetrad. So, because, and again, remember the story of the Buddha, going through torture, self-mortification, extreme asceticism, and that did not lead him to release. That when final release came, it came in the form of him remembering, right, that childhood experience of letting body and mind just settle in its natural state. And then from there, when the mind became happy, content, present, it's the most conducive to seeing clearly. So in later Vajrayana traditions, they talk about emptiness and bliss. It's the same thing that is going on. It's just vocabulary and making it sound more sexy, But it's already right there in the beginning. Yeah.
In terms of the instigating this rapture, you said it's best to use like a bodhicitta. Is that
Loving
maybe
kindness.
kind of an active, like imagining somebody happy, somebody else happy, somebody we care about?
There are various ways.
Something.
There are various ways, depending on what resources you have for cultivating loving kindness, for cultivating compassion, cultivating joy. Yeah, so some of you are involved in... I started a series where we meet Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 10. We're into week 3 now. It's part of this Fivefold Mahamudra tradition in the Drigung Kagyu. So leading us through the manual, like one cycle. I don't know how long it'll take. We'll just keep going and going and going. And so in that manual, there are deeper instructions on cultivating loving kindness, cultivating. So my point is that there is kind of more things you can bring into this, depending on how much other resources you have available to bring in. So the main point here is like to instigate this pity. Don't choose objects that will get you entangled. Choose those methods and objects that will be less entangled. Yes, in the Vajrayana, they even talk about, right, sexual partner. That's how far they would go in talking about rapture and bliss. But well, at your own risk, if you want to go that route. And of course, you're like, yeah. Okay.
What about even like just imagining yourself like on a beach on a warm day?
You could,
like
yeah.
that? Is that-
Test it out and know how easy entanglements come. Yeah. But test it out. It's your process. Yeah. Bottom line, don't harm anyone.
Yeah.
Yes.
You say it's be careful with choosing an object, but do you necessarily need an object to have the arising of pity?
I don't know. If you can do it without, then go. Yeah. Jan Zovich was giving a lecture about in the IAPS. Someone recorded it. Somebody asked in the audience Gyopa's view towards Kama Mudra, stuff like that, And apparently Jan says, he thinks it's a nuisance. He thinks it's a nuisance. Move on. It's just messy. Literally. It's just messy. Yes, there was a question. Yeah. A comment.
Oh.
Yeah.
Kind of similar to his
Mhm.
and his
Uh-huh.
question, right? Where like incorporating the meta or like
Mhm.
the satipatthana, like
Mhm.
experiencing the body.
Uh-huh.
Like, okay, this is a bag of brains. Here's some millet, guts.
Uh-huh.
Here's this. Or
Yeah.
that.
But in the 16 stages,
Yeah.
you steer away from the painful. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, with the body, for me,
Uh-huh.
with the body thing, it's more like it's a series of processes. Like,
Yes.
these are just
Yes.
organs.
Yes.
the
Yes.
skin,
Yes.
Whatever. But more along the lines of incorporating the meta into the piti,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Where trying to like enhance or encourage
Mm-hmm. Yes.
that.
To kind of instigate that experience. Yes.
And also, kind of like he was saying, where just me personally, where I've
Mhm.
found meta really
Mm-hmm.
hit hardest or whatever is when it's born in and of itself and I get out of the way of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is that eventually, if I just keep doing, I mean, I've had this on my fridge for the past year, but like, is that eventually just gonna hit itself after practicing this? Oh, and do we break it into tetrads and do one tetrad at a time?
You mean like?
Like in the morning, do the first four. and then-
Yeah, I mean, you can, I think realistically, right? Let's say you say, okay, after this weekend, I want to do something, right? For a while, park yourself in the first four. Yeah. Park yourself there. As I said, normally this is taught as a 10-day thing. And then you actually have the time and the experience of 10 days, going through the whole. Then at that point, when you come out of a 10-day, you have a better sense of like, can I do the 16 in one session? You would know. Yes or no.
And at that point, it'll almost become like a natural flow of things.
Yes,
Like
yeah,
once I get to
yeah,
the
yes.
body, then the
Yes,
pity will come,
yeah.
and then-
It's like learning, I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but like Tai Chi and all its moves, for a while it's a little clunky. Yeah, because you're like, wait, how? Move here. Wait, how? But then after a while you get the whole flow. And then you know. Do I need the whole sequence? Or am I going to strengthen this part first and then strengthen this part and this part and this part? Yeah. Yeah, so practically if 5 and 6 is like, I don't even have any idea what you're talking about, then stay at the first 4. Because, right? When you have more and more experience with this, 4 is supposed to lead to 5 without you instigating it. Because when the body is deeply calmed, when its fabrications are deeply pacified, then you need to do very little to have piti come up. Then you only need to have a very slight intention. Now piti needs to go into sukha, and it goes. But at the beginning, right, when you're trying to learn a dance, let's call it that, right? Like ballroom dance, not like free form dance, then do whatever heck you want. But if you're learning ballroom dancing, right, at first it's memorizing a lot of things. But once you get the flow, then it's the body takes over, right? Yeah. Same here. Yeah.
I'm wondering what's the difference
difference between mental fabrication and mind?
Mhm.
Between 8 and 9?
Between 8 and 9. Yeah. So 8 works on the in the what do you say in the context of 7. And at that point, mental fabrication is stress, is a dukkha. And then the putting down of the dukkha, the setting aside of the dukkha. Then in 9 is not a dukkha state of mind. Yeah, now mind is, again, when we're training, right, it's a little contrived. You say, 9, I will breathe in experiencing mind. Yeah, you're like, yeah, experiencing mind. Yeah? And it's still like, right, the next move in Tai Chi, which is still kind of like one corner of your eye, you're trying to see what the guy in front is doing. And then you're like, wait, can you move over this way so that I can see you better, right? But again, when you begin to get the flow, then when you calm mental fabrication, the mind that you now transition to looking at is something else now. And His Holiness links this to actually, he would link this up to certain parts of like Mahamudra training. It's like looking at mind, directly looking at mind, the qualities of mind. Then he says, now switch to gladdening the mind. Yeah.
Do you use that just to like maintain your focus so that you can keep looking at that on? You're basically picking up like happiness, picking up rapture, putting it down in order to maintain your focus, keep your mind happy, continue looking like a Mahamudra kind of perspective at the qualities of mind, looking at the qualities of phenomena, picking them up, putting them down.
What's behind that question?
I have no idea.
Oh, then I have no answer. I mean, you have curious speculation, I have speculative answers.
I think I have my own answer for it.
Oh, okay, good. That's the best kind of answer. In the end, you just need to satisfy yourself, right? I mean, all of us. Yeah? Yeah.
We'll throw this out there.
Uh-huh.
You've definitely helped me like recognize the chilling out process, right?
Uh-huh.
Or like the picking up the happiness.
Yes.
Right. It's like getting comfortable enough.
Yes.
Right? It's like I'm grabbing hold of something
Yeah.
that's bothering me, right? Like
Yeah,
particular,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Really grab hold of that.
Right,
tight, right?
right.
Letting go and chilling out with the happiness and like the comfortability.
Yes.
Definitely makes the life easier to.
Yeah. I mean, the inflammation, you know, like the first 8 stages is much needed now, how triggered we are constantly, you know, by all sorts of things. And then when you are not, they even guilt you for not. Why are you not running around like a headless chicken? Because I don't want to. Oh, you must be a bad person. It's like, that's not going to help anything, you know. It's just.
And this chicken has a hard time liberating the mind. I guess.
Yeah.
Or an easy time.
And so the basic in the first 8, right? The basic underlying, I would say, goal is again settling the body, settling the mind. Settle the body, settle the mind. So you can do these 8 as like a cycle. And 9 to 16. Sure, you can, like I said, those resources. Then you'll hear more about the content of the 3rd tetrad and the 4th tetrad. This is just an introduction to this. But just the 8 I have found to be very helpful. And then from there, you could kind of switch to some other. And whatever practice you already have, I also feel that the 8 can enhance, can help whatever main practice that you are doing. Joy is so sukha is also sometimes experienced. Sukha is the happy feeling of accomplishing the desired goal. No, here, sorry, because the vocabulary used is a little. Here it's actually explaining between piti and sukha. It says, piti is like experiencing happiness upon fulfilling the long-pending desired aim on the way, and sukha is like the state of experiencing the calm and relaxed state of mind afterwards. And so this one, instead of like, yeah, we're going to Disneyland, which is the example I use, and now we are there. Now this one is more like when you first arrive at Disneyland, like, yes, I'm here. And then through the day, kind of like having, the calm. It's like, and so that's the piti and sukha.
Is piti, does it help the mind to stabilize itself?
That's what it says.
So the calm afterwards, I'm saying the calm afterwards, is that a result of the condition of having pithy arise?
That's what it says.
Okay. Okay. That's good to understand.
That's what it says.
Thank you.
One example of sukha is on this quotes one sutra. So there are again things that you can bring in. So he gave a mental and sensational imagery in terms of like an object to bring up, like a topic to bring up. So after piti, right? How you move from piti to sukha, he says. So if because sometimes you just don't know because of arising conditions. And sometimes you can feel like when you're in piti, very, very strong, right? Like great joy, whatever the word you want to use, joy, happy, pleasure, very strong. And then he says, to bring it to sukha, you imagine warm milk or oil being poured slowly from the top of your head. Or maybe get someone to pour. Can you help me in my meditation? I need someone to pour warm oil all over me. Be careful, that can lead to some entanglements. But the One Sutra gives the example to be like that, but I remember his Holiness saying, no, you can kind of like. And so this is a skillful use of your imagination of what that feels like, And there's a Ayurvedic treatment, right, of warm oil and dripping on the head. And it's sweeping down. And so then you kind of. And that can also be used in the calming of bodily fabrication. I remember he said, you can bring that image in. Then a sense of well-being to the body can be experienced. In the, the context of the 10 days, yesterday there was a question about the dhyana states, concentration states, the jhana, and also shamatha, vipassana. His Holiness does go into more detail about where is the lines according to this more structured understanding of transitioning from experiencing this quality of the mind abiding in a stable way, and then from there the mind seeing clearly. He does talk about that. Yeah, so even in the experiencing mind, experiencing the mental formations, I said that, it's like you are now, right, paying attention to the fabricated nature of like mental experiences, right? Even there, the way I talked about it is like now body and mind is in a good place, then you can turn your attention to the stress that is part of mental fabrication. His Holiness even says that actually, even with the quality of sukha, you should look deeper to see the conditional nature of sukha. So the seven, I will breathe in experiencing mental fabrication is not limited to just the stress that comes from mental fabrication, including the pleasure that comes from mental, the pleasure that is formed, fabricate. Again, fabricate in this case, it's not pointing us in the direction of like false, but rather the put together nature of experience. That it's composed of parts, and then because it's composed of parts, even with the pleasurable, with the pleasant, with the desirable, they are of the nature of falling apart. And recognition of that leads to calming mental formations, mental fabrication. When you understand, oh, that's just how it is. And that is an element to like now chill. Yeah. As good and as desirable as piti sukha is, now chill. Because when the conditions are no longer there, it will go away. So you should not fixate. I was watching some documentary, an expose of Opus Dei, this one movement within Catholicism. And they are really into reviving some medieval Catholic practices of seeing the dukkha of painful. I'm just imagining, I wonder if you could switch this into like, whipping yourself and then putting it down, experiencing pain, putting it down. Yes.
How do you deal with somebody, I mean, the reason I think in our society we have such a drug and alcohol problem is people have never experienced feeling good.
Yeah.
How do you deal with that?
What do you mean, how do I deal with that?
Well, how do you deal with that work? I mean, probably it's the Tuesday night people I need to talk to, with the substance abuse, but how, I mean, you gotta bring up good feeling, but you don't have this.
Yeah.
First tetrad.
Yeah, the first tetrad. But then in the bigger question to that, right, is I think, so to answer that question, maybe that's not what you're asking, but I'll use this opportunity to answer what I think is the bigger question, like how did we get here, I think we got here because here's my kind of theory. Take it with a grain of salt. Here's my theory. I think as scientific research, particularly not the scientific and technological research, has led to both amazing interventions on the medical side of things, and also technological advances has led to tremendous improvement in lightening physical inconveniences and challenges. So the outlets for dukkha and the ripening of negative karma has narrowed. But negative karma has not been reduced, and dukkha has not been reduced. It still needs to come out somewhere. So it's coming out, as some might say, first world problems. It's coming out, not to this is not to belittle, although sometimes when people say first world problem, they're belittling. I'm not. I'm just saying, when you close off all the other avenues for negative karma and suffering to turn up, it's not going to go away. It's just going to come up differently. Right? And so that's one side, right? Then the other side is like, look, maybe a parent would even say, right? I gave you the best. Why are you still not happy, right? Because the conditions, we try so hard, right, to improve all of that. But it's not a given, you know. Like if you're not paying attention to how good this is, it doesn't matter how good it is. Has no value. When you are obviously kind of deprived of this or that, yeah, in a way you kind of still hang on to this possibility that when I get it all, I may be happy. And that might be a better position than I got it all and no, happiness did not turn up. Now what? Right? So now we search for something else. Right? So it's not very different from Siddhartha's story. So then he went in the direction of peak experiences with these mystical traditions, thinking that that will bring him the happiness he was looking for. But that also didn't deliver. It turns out that liberation is less intense. And it's quite ordinary. So, can we go back to the ordinary and retrieve, the ordinary, the natural state? And that I think then is about learning skillful attention. Skillful attention. And I think that's what Buddhist practice is. Skillful attention. Which is manisikara in Sanskrit. Skillful attention. Then Saraha talks about amanisikara. Non-attention. Then, okay, now, that's the bigger picture, right? Now, the intervention. The intervention, I think, can happen in like the way that even, I think, like, say, what's his name? The system that John Kabat-Zinn has, developed. Yeah, MBSR, And that begins with the training of paying attention, right? And then, it's become like eating raisin, eating almond. However it's done, right? It's introducing the idea of like, pay attention. And because there is abundance, then we don't pay attention. When there is lack, right, we pay attention. I mean, I even remember, like, don't you feel like these days, like Christmas, Thanksgiving, just burdensome? Because there is abundance. There are foods that we only got once a year. Now, you want Christmas? I can give it to you now. You want Easter? I can give it to you now. Then it's no longer satisfying. Yeah, and then pity, because we are operating under, it's not enough. Reason why I'm not satisfied is because there is, like volume-wise, not enough. So we seek increase, right? And The truth is, I have no personal experience with, psychoactive things, anything like that. But just based on what I can observe, it's like, right? The first hit, oh, good, and then not enough, right? So you think you have to increase until you kill yourself. But it's obviously not about volume. It's about, are you present for the experience to unfold? So I think related to addiction and how we may be able to, not as the, it's not the only, or should not be only solution, but one thing that probably could help is learn how to be present to the experience of pleasure. Now, I think also culturally there is a baggage surrounding pleasure. And religion sometimes is not helping, where you're being shamed for experiencing pleasure under the guise of religion. And it's easy to mistake Buddha's statements about suffering, entanglement, desire, to also fall into that anti-pleasure cult. It seems like all religion wants to do is to, dampen your party. You're having a good time, bad. So actually, especially Christianity here. So in Asia, people will say the same thing about, especially Buddhism. So now they're all evangelical Christians. Because it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I heard myself when I said
Yeah.
that. I was like, wait, but I think Muslims do the same thing.
Yeah. Whatever they try to deprive you of, it does seem like religion has a vendetta against fun and pleasure, some kind of perverse anti-fun, anti-pleasure cult, Yes.
May I please add to the wonderful theory? Can we just also say, what I see is that we don't know ourselves, and society doesn't teach us to know ourselves.
Oh, for sure.
And we focus too much on the materialistic of life, and thus, because of that, we get to what you just said. And for me, in the recovery, because I have had some addictions, recovered from them, and it's about escaping. And it's about escaping this materialistic world that doesn't teach us
Yes.
the depthness of what we really are.
Right. And not comfortable in our own skin.
Yeah.
Wishing that you can have a skin graft.
Because we lack so much knowledge.
Yeah, all societies, Asia here, all societies, all of our education is geared towards figuring out what's out there. And then if you say, I'm going to go to this weekend thing to learn about what's in there, people look at you funny, Again, without needing to say everything out there is actually in here, at the very least you can say, well, there's out there, there's in here, so the mathematics I need to do is 50%, 50%, right? Did you spend 50% of your growing up learning about in here? No, not even 1%. Which parent ever said to a child, do you know that there's an inner world? Nobody ever, practically. Unless you're blessed with hippie parents. Then you're running away from that, Then you ended up in Wall Street. I used to have students like that at Warren Wilson College, They are the ones that have to hide away. Parents drying marijuana at home when they bring friends home. It's like, God! Yeah, you're absolutely right, because this is, we like spend all our years of being educating us about what to do with the outside, with no appreciation whatsoever. With your ability to know what's outside is dependent so much of the one who is knowing, and you have no understanding of how the one who is knowing is constituted. How well will this story go? It'll go well for a while, and then it'll fall apart. So, midlife crisis is just about time. Give it enough time, and then,
Or you get sick of it.
yeah, it just falls apart, right? So first quarter of our life is learning about stuff. Second quarter of the life is learning about how to get stuff. Third quarter of life is managing stuff. Fourth quarter of life is worrying what will happen to stuff. And then you're dead.
I think I did this all wrong.
Yeah, if you just divide life into these 4 parts, this is everyone's story. Learn about stuff, learn how to get stuff, accumulate stuff. Now what do I do with stuff? Then religion comes along and give me your stuff. So watch out for that too. Yeah, watch out for that too, Give me your stuff. Wait a minute. Yes.
I've always looked at Buddhism and Buddhists and thought, a robe and a bowl, how nice would that be?
Yeah. Contentment is the highest happiness, the Buddha says. Simple words. Sometimes not fancy enough to take seriously. But there is nothing more to that statement, Of course, there's so much to understand about contentment. So much. Yeah? Learn to savor contentment. It's not what you think it is. Superficial. Really, contentment. Not like pressing down, or denying yourself. No. Self-denial, No, that's not the Buddha's approach. Buddha is really talking about taste this. Actually, this metaphor, right? The one taste. The one taste, the single taste of all experiences is what we're all looking for. Whatever you call it, we're looking for that one taste. And that taste, the Buddha says, is the taste of liberation, of being free. And that's related to this contentment. So all these methods, right, are ways and means of getting us to that place of that one taste, to savor that. Then when we have tasted that one taste, then all the things that you have to give up, you have to give away, all that, it's not really about austerity, it's about simplicity. To simplify. So if nothing else you got from this weekend is, mainly Buddha is saying, go look more closely into how you can simplify your life, so that in the midst of that simplicity, you can begin to savor experiences and savor it in a way that is freeing. There's savoring that leads to, more craving. Yeah? But this is the savoring that brings satisfaction. Right? So what is one thing to experience pleasure? What is desire? Desire, the end game of desire is satisfaction. But if we don't know how to savor, we will never get satisfaction. We will just desire more and more and more. Then you're constantly chasing for the next high. Whether it turns into addiction, and that affects actually bodily chemistry. I think we cannot ignore that. That's true. Or even if there's no chemical effect going on, this wanting. Actually, this wanting, what it wants, which is this satisfaction, ironically, it's innate. So sometimes in a more provocative statement, they will say that the desire for happiness, right, is in fact a problem that arises from our Buddha nature. All your addictions, all your entanglements is because suffering is not natural to you, it's not innate, and so you're groping in the dark to go back to your innate nature. So you're not a bad person. You're not flawed by design, so to say. If there is a designer, by design or innately, we are geared towards happiness. The problem is not knowing how to get there. Then we get entangled. Afflictions are bodhi in Zen expression. Bonno sukha bodhi. It's based on this. And that's helpful sometimes to understand that, because I think, especially this culture, there's a particular kind of, maybe, not directly, but definitely related to ideas of your sinful nature, the baggage of original sin. Even if you intellectually don't believe in that anymore, but too much got worked into the system. It's lurking somewhere back there, It lurks. Given the right conditions, it's going to spring out and go, ta-da, I'm here. Then even Dharma practice can become reinforce that you are flawed, you are bad. That's what I find. In Asia, it's different. The neurosis is a little different. Yeah, so coming back to the method, this foray into bigger picture things. Then more specifically coming back to, your question about what to do with, addictions, whether clinical or otherwise. Just the first four, teaching ourselves how to have more ability to place ourselves, body and mind, in a good place. And so then it's not just about meditation techniques, you know. It's a whole package deal. So we go back to where we started. The threefold practice of Shila, Samadhi, and Prajna. Disciplined conduct, steadiness of heart, of mind, Samadhi, and then clear seeing. That we practice this, you know, as a package. Then the 3 levels of cultivating, avoiding the causes of suffering, creating the causes of happiness, the opposite of the 10 non-virtues, the 10 virtuous actions. Instead of killing, we support life, we protect life. Instead of stealing, we cultivate giving, generosity, and not coveting. So the 10 virtues. And again, you know, sometimes we think, again, religion, you know, it's all just about can't do this, can't do that. It's not you cannot do. It's more that do you want happiness or do you want suffering? Happiness and suffering don't just fall from the sky. Good news is we create them. Then even in here, choosing to avoid unskillful actions is a good skill. Right? It's a good skill. So when we begin to approach this as a more kind of holistic approach, then applying just a little bit of methods like this will yield more results. So here's the part where I think our American pragmatic can-do can sometimes lead us to kind of not helpful sometimes. Because we trust so much in effective techniques, right? Even people talk about like mind hack, you know, like how to hack the mind, you know, all this tech talk, of course, right? No, there's no hack for the mind. It's habituation, not hacking. Habituate, 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 habituate. Right now we are also habituating. What are we habituating? We're habituating habits of suffering. So then the reality of suffering turns up again and again and again and again and again. So that's cause and effect. And so if we habituate habits of happiness, then happiness turns up again and again and again and again. When we have a good understanding view of where we're trying to get to, then the method works well. So don't place too much weight on the best method. Because all you end up doing is making someone wealthier. Let's go test out that. Oh, pay your fees. Let's go test that. Oh, pay your fees. Let's go test that. Oh, pay your fees, you know. Then you are, you know, supporting the industry of enlightenment. Meanwhile, you are as confused as lost as you started 20 years ago. So, we covered the two tetrads. The other two tetrads, you have to do a little bit of work on yourself. They are available in the resources that we will share. Yeah? Yes?
Did you mention that the 10-day is available?
Yeah, from time to time, Droma in Maine would do. So we will send also in the resource how to get onto her mailing list, so that you will be able to see when it's coming up next. And I noticed that more recently, so I don't know the details, I'll research that, there's another teacher, a nun, on the other end of the country, on the West Coast, who is also starting to do that. But I'm not sure if she's doing the 10 days yet. Yeah. In this particular method. Yeah. Then His Holiness used to teach it, but then he's in 3-year retreat now. For a lot of these, whether it's the 16 stages or 5-fold Mahamudra, you might like, oh, I don't want to hear that. But the truth is, like, once a week doesn't build momentum. Twice a week doesn't build momentum. That's just the truth. It's like sustained, over chunks of time. That will build momentum. Then you can see more directly how it works, So we're trying to create, the conditions for that kind of experience, and that's what the Drigung Forest Hermitage, is intending to do. But meanwhile, before we get there, all I can say is to encourage you to be regular with your practice. Try to, really, think about how much time you have given to managing all the other affairs in your life, and the absurdity of saying, oh no, but I cannot do practice an hour a day with a group. So what are you doing, Oh, I have this, I have that. Okay. If that doesn't change, then nothing will change, No magic pill. And the purpose of the practice is not some kind of somebody once asked His Holiness the Dalai Lama in one of these Mind Life, conferences, and with scientists and all of that. Somebody once asked him, maybe not really expecting him to give this answer. They say, with scientific advancements and everything, do you think that a day will come where they will come up with a pill that you can just swallow, and then, confusion disappears? Apparently he said, well, I hope they do, then I will take it first. Yeah? Of course, what he's also saying is, it's not possible. If it was possible, I'll be the first to take it. Right? There's no value to suffering. There's no value to the hard work of training. It's just simply, there isn't an alternative. Yeah, so you don't need to make your practice more difficult. That's not the point at all. Yeah? That it is difficult, realistically speaking, there will be days, there will be ebb and flow of your excitement about your practice. That's fine. There will be ebb and flow. Sometimes I say to people who come to me and say, I don't feel like practicing. I say, yeah, don't. They're like, wait, you're being sarcastic. No, I'm serious. Don't. But here's what I mean by don't. Don't practice, but pay attention to the fact that you're not practicing. Don't look away. Pay attention to that. And so purposely starve yourself and see what happens. Now that's part of your practice. That's part of your practice. You're keeping your samaya, but you are intentionally withholding practice. Just don't look away. If you look away, then yes, you have given up. Don't look away. Don't practice. Don't sit. Don't chant. Don't do your prostrations. Whatever the discipline that you have decided you're going to pick up. There will be ebb and flow. It's just unreliable. All conditioned states are unreliable. Right? So there you're like, well, there you go. Buddha was right. Right? But don't look away. You can build strength from that. So you're building up strength. Strength for you to see more clearly. So we'll dedicate merit on page 9. By this merit may I achieve the all-knowing state. May all who wander on the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death cross the ocean of samsara by defeating enemies of faults and delusions, just as heroic men knows everything as it is, and Samantabhadra, who is thus as well, will I follow in their path and perfectly dedicate all the virtues. Mulated bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, rise where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. May the light teachers, glory of the teachings be firm. May this world be filled with holders of the teachings. May the fortunes possessed by benefactors of the teachings increase. May all to that the teachings remain perpetually. So we have these handouts printed there. So feel free to take it. If you have a bigger one, you want a smaller, more handy copy, we have some there. Then Urban Dharma is a community that does all kinds of things. Sometimes more explicitly fun things than other times. And this one that is coming up is called Remembering and Renewing, Honoring Our Past, Committing to Our Future. It started with the board thinking of a program to entice people to join in supporting the center through sustained giving. Meaning that you plan it so that monthly you give $10 or $5 or $50, whatever your ability. It may sound like just words, but we really do mean it. It's different from. In terms of money, of course, it's the same whether you give us, $10 a month over 12 months, or you just put 120 in there, right? But it's more than that. It's really more than that. There's the energetic aspect, the energetic body that comes from saying, saying and knowing Every month I want to give $10 or $5. So we were trying to entice people with some kind of program. But then from there, since we like having fun, it morphed into something else. And now we're doing a Day of the Dead night market. So there are two parts. So the remembering is we're actually going to have a short service that starts at 7:30 on November 1st. At 7:30 will be a short service to remembering all those dearly departed and deceased. At some time this week, we're going to create an altar around Kshitigarbha, which in East Asian tradition is kind of like the guardian of the dead. So we're going to create an altar there and inviting people to bring photos, mementos from their deceased to put in that shrine. Then there will be a service at 7:30 on Saturday. But there are other things going on. We are actually going to have a night market, people selling different things, food. Our Mexican Dharma members have even sent us a whole box of Mexican merchandise that we're going to sell. And then there's incense, there is food, there is face masks, and all different things we're going to set outside. There's going to be a silent auction. We have some really interesting art collected by one of our members who passed away almost 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, Laura Russell. She has good taste, a lot of native art objects that we're going to have a silent auction for. So it has gone from fundraising to what I call friend raising and fun raising. From fund raising to fundraising and friend raising. So please, if you are local, please come Saturday from 6 to 9, Saturday, November 1st. It's can't really work if it is not festive. It can't really be festive if there's only 4 of us standing around here awkwardly. I mean, Buddhists are kind of awkward, but we try to avoid that. I always joke about, we need some evangelical energy mixed into, Buddhists are kind of awkward, socially awkward types, right, that turn up here. So we'll make it less awkward if you turn up. So that's November 1st, 6 to 9. So thank you so much for joining us this weekend. And good luck with working with these stages. Or whatever you can take away from this weekend, just pull it. Pull it into, you don't need to switch into another technique. I don't think that's really what's helpful. Then you just keep going from one to another. If you have already sufficient kind of confidence in whatever practice you have established, stay there, But there are insights from this that you can bring into your practice. And that's probably the most beneficial way of what, you heard this weekend. So thank you so much. Thank you on Zoom for joining us, participating. Happy weekend. Ta-ta, bye-bye, adios.
And one more thing
Oh,
to
and
share.
one more thing?
Yeah.
Oh,
So thank you so
Nathan?
much, Rinpoche. You may know it's customary at the end of a Buddhist program to give a small or big, whatever size, offering
Small
to the
or
teacher.
big?
Anyways, now is a good time to do that. So if you're here in the temple, we have envelopes and the traditional Tibetan scarf that you can offer to Rinpoche. And if you're on Zoom, someone will share some details for doing so. There will also be details in the follow-up email that'll go out with all of the resources mentioned. So thank you so much. And yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nathan. Thank you for that. But by the way, I am not lacking food to eat or a roof to live under. So, yeah, thank you. Bye bye.